But now we will move on to a different kind of strategic alliance and a keynote online speech by Benedetta Berti, Head of Policy Planning in the Office of the Secretary General at NATO.
Thank you very much. First of all, good morning, and I'm very happy to be able to participate in this conference. I would have wished, of course, to be there in person, hopefully next time. I also wanted to thank the organizers for adding a NATO perspective to the conversation and for asking me to briefly go over where the NATO alliance is in terms of main political priorities and adaptation, both on the political and the military side. And I really think this is an important topic, not just because I work for NATO, but also because I believe that the alliance in recent years is really undergoing a significant change to adapt to what is essentially the most complex, unpredictable, and serious security environment that we have faced, at least since the end of the Cold War. So from a NATO alliance perspective, what we see when we look at the broader security environment is, first of all, the Euro-Atlantic area is not at peace because of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. War has returned to the European continent. It is, of course, a source of instability for the entire Euro-Atlantic area. It is also a source of instability for the rules-based international order. And it's the way NATO sees us today, the Russian Federation's behavior represents a significant threat to alliance security and to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area. So we start with the understanding that our own continent is in the most complex security predicament in generations. More broadly, when we look beyond the Euro-Atlantic area, we also see the rise of strategic competition globally. We see countries like Russia and China pushing against the rule-based international order, and that also has an impact on our security. And then, of course, we also see that instability, fragility, conflict remains pervasive in our broader neighborhood, including in the broader southern neighborhood. And then we see that our definition of security more and more has to deal with complex issues like climate change, which are not traditional security issues, but which, of course, today have an impact on the security of our countries and also have an impact on our militaries, because, of course, more and more our countries need to rely on our militaries to address rising extreme weather events connected to climate change. So I'm just giving you this initial statement of facts of how we see the security environment to reiterate that because of that, NATO is undergoing a profound transformation, militarily and politically. And one of the signs of this was the last NATO summit, which took place in Vilnius, in Lithuania, just a few months ago. And if you look at the main decisions taken at that summit, I think it's a good way to understand where the alliance is going. So first of all, that summit focused really on our deterrence and defense posture. This is a very important adaptation for NATO. It is since 2014, this process started in 2014 following Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea, which really was a red flag especially for our military planners, sending the clear message, we really cannot take the territorial defense of allies for granted, and we need to rebuild and strengthen our collective defense. So since 2014, NATO has been implementing a reinforcement of collective defense, the largest in generations. This includes more forward deployed multinational battle group on our eastern flank. It includes a reform of our command structure. It includes approving new defense plans, regional defense plans, the largest and most comprehensive one approved since the end of the Cold War. It also includes more exercising. It includes stepping up our reinforcements. So when I put all these things together, and this was a very big deliverable from our Vilnius summit, the message is clear. The alliance has strengthened and is strengthening its deterrence and defense, essentially rebuilding the capability that we had in the post-Cold War era somewhat neglected because we focused more and more on threats and challenges from out of area. Whereas now, of course, we are rebuilding our ability to defend territory and population, and through a stronger deterrence and defense posture. So that was very important for us in Vilnius. Just related to the adaptation of our posture, we're also pushing very clearly for increased investment in defense spending. Again, that's something that started in 2014. And if we look back, we can see that in the last 9 years, over $450 billion have been added to defense spending from European allies in NATO and Canada. So we see there is a good trajectory, recognizing that because our security environment is more complex, we need to do more on defense. Just as important, in Vilnius, we took decisions to strengthen our relationship with the defense industry, because we know very well that industrial production is essential, especially as we are not just increasing our defense, but also continuing to support Ukraine as it defends itself against aggression. And this was, of course, the second main area of work for NATO. For us, supporting Ukraine is, of course, standing up for the rules-based international order, supporting a country which is exercising its UN Charter rights to self-defense. It's also a way to support stability in our continent, because we understand that Russian aggression is a major source of insecurity and instability. So NATO has been supplying non-lethal military assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of the war, but now we are really stepping up not just the amount of assistance, but also putting it on a multi-year framework. So we work more closely with the Ukrainian security services and armed forces to really help them transition away from Soviet era equipment, doctrines, and training into fully interoperable with NATO and Western standards. So that's an important part of the work. At the same time, we're strengthening political relations with Ukraine through an upgraded new NATO-Ukraine Council, where we basically sit, all the 31 allies and Ukraine sit as equals to consult, to discuss important common security challenges, and to really work closer together politically. And of course, in Vilnius, there was also decisions with respect to future membership of Ukraine into NATO. The decision taken in Bucharest which is Ukraine will become a member of NATO, was reiterated, and the membership process was streamlined from a two-step process into one, so simplified, again, to bring Ukraine closer to NATO. Finally, because I know you have a very, very packed program and I don't want to take too much time, the third main element of adaptation for NATO really is how do we respond to this rise in strategic competition, and how do we respond to a security environment where we see more and more non-military hybrid threats and challenges being used against us. So for us, this is really strengthening our work on resilience, strengthening our work with partners, and here the relationship with the European Union is very important, because we have a strategic partnership based on mutual interests and values. And around the Vilnius summit, we also, for the first time, introduced a joint EU-NATO staff evaluation of the importance of our critical infrastructure and how it affects our security. So we're working with the EU also on issues related to resilience. And finally, in terms of what does it mean to deal with the world of strategic competition, we also know that we need to work even more with our partners, not just those in our neighborhood, but also those further away that share our interests and values. And this is why in Vilnius, we had, for the second time in 2 years, a meeting with the heads of state and government of our 4 partners in the Indo-Pacific region: Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and New Zealand. Again, to recognize that even though we are far apart from a geographical point of view, many of the security challenges we face really know no geographical boundaries. Think of hybrid or cyber threats, and therefore we need to work closer together. So when I take it all of these elements together, and I'll close, I think I can tell you that the alliance is really pursuing a very deliberate adaptation to rebuild its and strengthen its deterrence and defense posture, to invest more in partnerships from the European Union to our partners in the Indo-Pacific, and of course to continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes so that it can prevail as a sovereign, independent country. And those will be my state of affairs of NATO in a few minutes. And I thank you again for allowing me to speak today.